Get me pregnant. You will get a permanent residence visa. Millionaire boss told her Jamaican janitor Part 2. He woke up in a mansion that wasn't his, paid for by a deal he can't speak of. Last week, he was a janitor. Last night, his billionaire boss slid a paper across her desk and said, "I want you to get me pregnant." No love, no strings, just a contract, and his freedom in exchange for his body. Now her doors open, her shadow moves, and his phone buzzes. Mama's getting worse. He's trapped between saving his mother and losing himself. Would you take the deal? Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell now, so you never miss the next part. Let's begin with a flashback from the last part. When it all began, the building was nearly dark when Kofi heard her voice. "Mr. Sinclair, my office. Now." The elevator hummed as it climbed past the glass floors of Winslow Robotics, a world that didn't belong to him. His reflection flickered in the steel walls. Uniform, gloves, tired eyes. When the doors opened, he saw her, Tata Winslow, standing behind her desk like a judge waiting for a verdict. The city lights burned behind her like a crown. "Do you know why you're here?" she asked. He nodded once, unsure if lying or silence would save him. She gestured for him to sit. He didn't. That's when she slid the folder across the glass table. Slow, deliberate, and final. Inside was his full name, date of birth, and a U.S. residency application, already filled in. He blinked. "I don't understand." Tata's expression didn't change. "You will. I want you to get me pregnant." The words fell with the weight of law, not desire. He froze, waiting for a camera, a laugh, anything. None came. Her voice stayed even. No marriage, no publicity, no emotional involvement. A transaction. In exchange, you'll never clean another floor again. His heartbeat drowned out the hum of the city. She stood, walked toward him, heels clicking like gunshots. "You're undocumented, aren't you?" He stiffened. "Your mother's sick. You send money every week." "How do you?" "I know everything about you, Kofi. That's why I chose you." Her calm was worse than cruelty. It meant she'd planned this. "What if I say no? Then by tomorrow morning, your file will be on Homeland Security's desk." The room felt colder. Her offer wasn't an invitation. It was survival disguised as opportunity. Tata leaned close enough for him to feel her breath. "You have 12 hours to decide. Walk out that door, and I erase you. Say yes, and your life changes forever." She turned away, leaving him in the blue glow of her office, the city roaring below. He looked at the folder again, his name printed beside hers. If he signed, he'd save his mother. If he refused, he'd lose everything. The elevator chimed behind him. He didn't move. That night, Kofi sat in his apartment's single room, the kind where silence felt heavier than noise. A flickering bulb, peeling walls, the smell of bleach clinging to his clothes. On the table, a half-eaten meal, a stack of overdue bills, and one medical letter from Jamaica, urgent treatment required. He replayed her voice in his head. "I want you to get me pregnant." The words kept circling like a curse. He imagined saying no, packing his things, vanishing before immigration found him. Then imagined his mother's hospital bed, her weak smile when he called. Every thought came back to that folder with his name beside hers. Freedom had never felt so dirty. His phone buzzed. It was his cousin from Kingston. Cough. Mama collapsed again. They can't keep her much longer without payment. He looked around, his life reduced to receipts and regrets. He whispered, "I'll fix it." The next sound was the flick of a lighter. He burned one of his unpaid bills, watching the paper curl like a promise. In the ash, a thought hardened. Maybe sin was just survival wearing a different name. He opened his drawer and pulled out the business card Tata had given him. Winslow Robotics, Executive Access. His thumb hovered over his phone. One call would change everything. He dialed. Her assistant answered. "She's expecting you. Tomorrow morning, 9 sharp." He barely slept. The night stretched thin, each hour louder than the last. By dawn, he stood at the immigration office, staring at the empty line beside "Signature of Beneficiary." His reflection in the glass door looked older, harder. He thought about the mop he'd used for years, the smell of bleach, the humiliation of being invisible. Now, one signature could erase all of that. He whispered, "For Mama," and reached for the pen. But his hand shook. Hard. Like his body knew what his heart refused to admit. This wasn't a choice. It was a surrender. Ink touched paper. One line. Then another. When it was done, he exhaled. But it didn't feel like breathing. His phone buzzed again. A new message from an unknown number. "You just signed your soul away." He froze. The document slid from his hand, fluttering to the floor. He looked at the message again. No name. No reply option. Only the words. Only the warning. The black car stopped at a gate taller than any building Kofi had ever cleaned. Lake Washington shimmered beyond the iron bars, beautiful, but cold, like everything that belonged to her. Tata didn't greet him. A silent housekeeper led him through marble corridors and glass staircases that echoed his footsteps. No laughter, no photographs. Just a place built to impress strangers and imprison its owner. In his new room, the sheets smelled unused. The closet was full of clothes his size, already bought, already ironed. It felt less like a home and more like a laboratory. Dinner was at 7. She sat across from him at the far end of a long table, knife and fork aligned like weapons. "Eat," she said, without looking up. Days passed in quiet rituals, blood tests, interviews with her private doctor, endless forms stamped confidential. Each night, he'd hear her pacing upstairs, talking to no one. One night, he caught a glimpse of her standing in the hallway, staring at a framed photo, a little girl smiling in school uniform. He'd never seen that child before. When she noticed him, she turned the frame face down. Her voice was steady but distant. "Don't come up here again." But her eyes looked like someone begging not to be seen. That's when Kofi realized something. She wasn't heartless. She was hiding something. The next week, during another silent dinner, the generator cut out. The house went dark. For the first time, she panicked. "Stay where you are," she ordered, fumbling for her phone. He found a candle and lit it. The light softened her face. Less Ice Queen, more human. They sat in the dim glow, trapped in the same silence, until she finally asked, "What does Jamaica smell like?" He smiled faintly. "Rain. Like sugarcane and rust." Her expression softened, just for a second. Then the power flickered back on, and the mask returned. "Good night, Mr. Sinclair," she said. But that small question left something open, a window he couldn't close. Later that night, he couldn't sleep. From the hall, he heard her whispering again, not into a phone this time, but to herself. The same name repeated under her breath. "Lena! Lena!" He leaned closer to the door, A soft click followed, then silence. When he looked in the morning, the photo of the child was gone. In its place sat a new folder on the table. His name was printed on the tab. Inside, medical instructions and a date. Tomorrow. It was past midnight when Kofi wandered into the kitchen, hungry and half awake. He found an old radio on the counter, turned the dial, and let a low reggae hum fill the silence. A soft rhythm, Toots and the Maytals, something that smelled like home. Then, footsteps. He froze. Tata stood in the doorway, barefoot, holding a glass of water. For the first time, she didn't look like a CEO. She looked tired. The song faded, but the air between them didn't. She smiled, small, fragile, almost an accident. And for a heartbeat, the mansion felt warm. But morning erased it. At breakfast, she spoke to him like nothing had happened, her tone clipped, her eyes elsewhere. She left early for the office, leaving behind silence thicker than the night before. He tried to shake it off, but the memory of that smile clung to him like perfume. By noon, the building buzzed. The janitor who used to mop floors was now seen entering the CEO's private wing. Voices dropped when he passed. Elevators went quiet when he stepped in. Someone slipped a note into his locker. "You're not the first." He stared at it, the letters bleeding through the paper like a wound. Days later, the messages kept coming. Different handwriting. Same words. He told himself it didn't matter. He was just doing his job. Until one evening, a man waited outside his apartment. Tall, calm, too clean to be random. "Name's Shane," he said, holding out an envelope. "For you." Kofi hesitated. "Who sent this?" Shane's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Someone who knows exactly what you've agreed to." When Kofi opened the envelope, a single photo fell out. Him and Tata in the kitchen, the night of the smile. A red X was marked across her face. Underneath, a line scrawled in ink. "Walk away or she won't." The rain had not stopped since morning. It fell in fine needles, whispering against the mansion gates. Kofi stepped out for air, his mind still echoing from the photo Shane had given him. The X across Tata's face. The threat. He didn't expect to see Shane again, not here, waiting under the streetlight, face pale as if haunted by what he knew. "You think you're lucky, don't you?" Shane's voice cracked through the rain. Kofi tensed. "You followed me?" Shane stepped closer. "I tried to warn the last one, too." He didn't listen. He held out a sealed envelope, his fingers trembling. "You need to see what she hides." Inside were photos. Tata, in a sterile white room, beside a man labeled Donor Number 14. A report followed. Winslow Robotics, Genetic Fertility Program. Kofi flipped the pages faster, breath shortening. The file referenced a discontinued research trial in Jamaica. His eyes caught a name he recognized. Marcus Daly. His cousin. He whispered it aloud. Shane nodded grimly. "You were never random, Kofi. She found you because your DNA matched one of the failed donors from her company's experiments. That man, your cousin, was part of it. He died after they shut it down." Lightning split the sky, the paper trembling in Kofi's wet hands. "She didn't choose you for who you are," Shane said. "She chose you because she already owned your bloodline." Kofi's thoughts scattered. His mother, the bills, that first night she smiled. Every kindness now felt scripted. Every promise, poisoned. Shane backed away, eyes full of warning. "You think she saved you?" She's repeating the same project, only this time, you're the experiment. Kofi didn't answer. He couldn't. The truth was a weight too heavy for words. Behind him, the mansion lights glowed like an empty cathedral, beautiful, cold, built on secrets. He looked back at the envelope, soaked through but still legible. The last page bore a single question, handwritten in ink. Would you still take the deal if you knew who was watching? He stared into the rain, whispering the words to himself. Destiny or exploitation? And what if both were true? If you discovered your entire opportunity was built on someone else's manipulation, would you still take it or burn it all down? He waited for her that night. The storm had quieted, but inside the mansion, the tension roared. When Tata walked in, dripping from the rain, she froze at the sight of him. The envelope open on the table, the photos spread like evidence. Kofi's voice was steady, but his eyes burned. Why me? For a long time, she didn't speak. Her hands, usually so precise, trembled. Then quietly, because you were perfect. A pause. And because you had nothing to lose. Her honesty landed like a blade. You don't even hear yourself, he said. You talk about people like components. She looked up sharply. Don't you dare act like you weren't tempted. You signed that paper. You wanted what I offered. I wanted a chance to live, he shot back. Not to be used. Her expression softened, but her eyes stayed cold. You think I wanted this, she whispered. Do you know what it's like to have everything except a heartbeat that continues your name? The mask slipped, not entirely, but enough for him to glimpse the wound beneath. Their argument turned fragile. Words slowed. Distance shrank. In a sudden, reckless moment, she reached out, touching his face. If you ever betray me, Kofi, she murmured, I will know. It wasn't a threat. It was a confession of fear. He held her gaze, searching for the woman behind the armor. For a heartbeat, they stood on the edge of something that felt like love, or maybe just the loneliness of two broken people colliding. When she turned away, he realized he didn't hate her. He pitied her. And that was worse. He looked at the photos once more before leaving the room. If she was telling the truth, she'd built her empire not from greed, but from grief. But could grief excuse what she'd done? Is the need to create life, or preserve your legacy, enough to justify crossing moral lines? 3 days later, Kofi's phone buzzed with a government notification. His immigration file had been updated. He opened it absently, then froze. Status: approved. Category: spouse of U.S. citizen. Tata Winslow. His vision blurred. He stormed into her office, slamming the door so hard it echoed down the hall. What did you do? Tata looked up from her desk, genuinely confused. What are you talking about? He threw the printed file across her table. This. You forged it. You made me your husband on paper. She scanned it. Then her face changed. Not guilt. Shock. This wasn't me, she whispered. Someone in the system tampered with it. Before they could say more, her assistant burst in. Ma'am, the board's seen it. They're calling an emergency meeting. In the boardroom, the tension was suffocating. Executives stared at her like sharks scenting blood. The chairman leaned forward. Either you confirm this marriage publicly, or resign as CEO. The scandal has already leaked. Tata's mask cracked again, but this time, there was no hiding. She'd spent her life controlling everything, and now the system she built had turned on her. Outside, Reporters swarmed the gates. Headlines flared across screens. Winslow Robotics Scandal. CEO's secret husband exposed. Kofi watched from the sidelines, torn between rage and pity. She had dragged him into a world that devoured both of them. That night, she sat alone in her office, staring at her reflection in the glass. He stood at the door. "What now?" She didn't turn. "Now I pay the price." Her voice broke slightly. "But tell me, Kofi, was it ever real for you?" He didn't answer. Outside, the media lights flickered like lightning, judgment in every flash. If this story has you on edge, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that blur the line between power and love. When power and survival collide, which one deserves to win? The next morning, the boardroom was packed. Cameras lined the back wall. The world waited. Tata Winslow, the woman once called untouchable, stood beneath the weight of her empire. Kofi sat at the edge of the room, his file on the table, his freedom hanging in the balance. The chairman's voice was cold. "You have two options. Deny the marriage and protect the company, or confirm it and destroy everything you built." Tata's gaze swept the room, then landed on Kofi. And for the first time, the woman who commanded millions looked human. She walked toward him. Every camera followed. When she reached him, she took his hand and faced the microphones. "There are things power can't control," she said quietly. "Love, truth, the past. We think we can own them, but they own us." The room went silent. Her words weren't a confession. They were surrender. In that moment, she wasn't the CEO of Winslow Robotics, just a woman who'd run out of masks. Later that night, they stood by the mansion window. The city glowed below, the same skyline where it all began. Tata spoke first. "Do you hate me?" He thought for a long time. "No," he said finally. "But I see you now." He walked away, free but changed. She remained, powerful but empty. In the reflection of the glass, their silhouettes parted like two halves of the same truth. One chasing redemption, the other paying for it. What would you choose? Love, power, or freedom? Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable stories. Your support helps us keep bringing you tales that touch the heart and challenge the soul. Tell us where you're watching from, subscribe for more powerful stories, and stay tuned because tomorrow we'll drop another story you won't want to miss. Your support helps us keep bringing you these stories.